Hi everyone, welcome to Blue Heron Hill. I'm Sue. Lots of seeds going all around. It's like almost a U shape in here. Things are growing a little bit slower than I want, but it's coming along. How are your seeds doing? I wanted to touch on this video a few things about growing seeds. I know this is coming a little bit late in the season because I'm sure everybody has nearly started already to get a jump start out in your garden, especially those of us that start our plants by seed. I hope you're giving this a try and trying to forego that nursery sticker shock because those prices are going up every single year. And it's always nice to save a little bit of money. So it's generally fairly easy to start tomato seeds, pepper seeds, any kind of seeds, lettuce seeds, anything that you want to grow in your garden. But the challenge comes in getting those seeds to germinate, to grow, and to produce your ripe fruit at harvest time in the summer. So you want to avoid your seedlings becoming too spindly. You want to avoid disease problems that can prop up. You want to avoid trauma to your plants as you transition the seedlings out into your garden. So you want sturdy, healthy, hardy seedlings to go out in your garden. So the first tip I have is don't start your seeds too early. In the example of a tomato plant, you want to start your seeds 5 to 6 weeks before your average last frost date. And it's easy to just kind of get excited and you want to start those things 7-8 weeks beforehand. But if you start them more than the 6 weeks before your last spring date, they're going to be ready to transition outside long before the outside conditions are hospitable to that type of plant. The second tip I have is keeping those seeds warm when you plant them. They benefit. One of the requirements for germination is a warm soil. A soil outside this time of year is not going to be conducive for a tomato plant to germinate. So to give them a little added warmth, generally it's 75 to 90 degrees is an optimal temperature for germination. Having a warm room, or even if you have a heat mat, that works. Also just a heating pad. If you have a heating pad that you use for your aches and pains, that's a very good option. Set on very low so it's not too hot. That will give those seeds just a little extra boost to get them germinating on time. Okay, the next tip would be lighting. So a bright sunny window is really not enough light to grow those sturdy seedlings that you need. The sun that's streaming through your window is going to produce seedlings that are rather on the leggy side. And besides, I don't know that anybody really has a window to give those seedlings enough daylight. They need 8 hours at least of daylight. So if you have shop lights, excellent solution. If you have grow lights, perfect. You don't need to buy anything with the word grow light on it. Those LED shop lights are perfect. That's what I have here to grow mine. So your seedlings are going to grow best when the light source is positioned about 2 to 4 inches above the level of the foliage, of the top foliage. And you need to keep your light source on for about 15-16 hours a day. Watering is the next topic I'd like to touch on. The soil needs to be consistently moist, but not sopping wet. When you touch the surface of the soil, you should feel just a light moisture. If those seedlings or the seeds dry out, that is very detrimental to that seedling. So to maintain soil moisture, that's imperative. Lightly watering every single day is better than waiting for the top of the soil even to dry out. Bottom watering is a must, and the soil will draw that water from the bottom throughout that whole cell or cube or whatever you have it planted in. Next tip, thin out the seedlings. I generally plant 2 to 3 seeds in every single cell. With tomato plants and pepper plants and your brassicas, you want only 1 plant per cell. 2 plants are going to overpower the nutrients that are in that cell. And when you get, I wait until I get the about 2 sets of true leaves on the seedling, and then I'll decide which one I want to be my one and only. So you want to either clip it off with your fingernails if you can, or a clean pruners, snip that right off. You don't need to pull it out by its root. That endangers possibly the one that you're leaving there. It might pull up part of its root structure, and then it will have a little bit more catching up to do. So just a little clip off of the one that you don't want. Now the next one would be fertilizing these tiny new seedlings. If you have started with seed starter mix, and I have said this in a lot of my different videos, is that seed starter does not contain any nutrients, unless of course it says it on the label. I don't use potting soil, I use seed starter, and I can even put a link to my seed starting recipe up there, and if you wanted to make your own, you can. But these little seedlings are going to need fertilizer. They're going to need some food. Originally, they needed no food because the seed supplied everything that it needed. But now that it has a few sets of its true leaves, it doesn't have anything left from its original seed, and you need to supply it. So again, I use a water-soluble fertilizer, and I bottom water about once a week with a very diluted solution of fertilizer. They'll thank you for it. Now another thing, this is something not everybody would think about. I'm just getting ready to set up a fan that is going to go and blow air over all of my seedlings. And it's not like I live in a real stuffy environment, but this is going to mimic nature, and it's going to strengthen these seedlings, especially tomatoes and peppers and things that are going to have one strong stem. It'll gently move the air around your seedling and give it a little movement to it, and that stem will toughen up a little bit. Right now it's just growing towards the light, wherever the light has it, growing straight up or to the side. You want to add a little bit more strength to that stem. If you add just a little bit of air movement, that will help a lot. Air movement will also help to keep any fungal problems at bay that may want to start up on the soil, on the surface of your soil. So air movement is good. Who knew? It's not that your plants want to stay cool. You need it to build a very strong, healthy plant. So your little seedlings are starting to grow up real tall, and your tiny little cell is getting too small for them, so you're going to need to up-pot them. Now sometimes Some of these plants can go out in your garden early. If you're doing tomatoes, more than likely, if you are planting them in a 1.5-inch cell or something like that, they'll probably be starting to become root bound, which means the roots start circling around the outside of the cell because they have nowhere to go. They've reached the side and then they'll just start circling around. Not a healthy thing for a plant. It's searching for more food and water. So you're going to need to up-pot it into a bigger pot. And usually I'll go up to a 3 or a 4-inch pot. With tomato plants, I like to go to a long and deep pot. And you can keep the top part shallow, bury it a little bit deeper in the soil, and more roots will form along that stem. But tomatoes and even peppers you can bury up a little bit on the stem. So up-pot your plants after, I don't know, 4 weeks or so. It's all up to you if you see lots of roots coming out of that drainage hole in the bottom, or if you even gently push up on that seedling in the pot, and it just comes out so easy because you can see roots going around the side. Definitely a time to give that plant a new pot to grow in. So once your plants are getting close to taking outside, and for me, I like to take out most of my plants about 10 days before I plan on planting them. And this is a time that they call hardening off your plants. So you're going to start exposing them to the outdoors. And really what you want to do is it's exposing them to direct sunlight. And just like people, they may get sunburned if they are exposed to the sun for too long a period without getting used to it. We, as humans, have melanin in our skin, which helps give us a tan. We are a little bit more protected against the rays of the sun. So every day for about 30 minutes or 15 to 30 minutes on the first day, a little sun exposure in the early morning when the rays aren't too intense, and every day maybe a little bit more and a little bit more until they're ready to spend, 8 hours in the sun in their spot in the garden. This seems like a real tedious process, but it is so necessary, because if you've spent all this time growing these tiny little seedlings and then they get sunburned and scorched, they may recover, but it's going to take a long time. The stress of a condition like this is going to take them a long time to recover. So be mindful of that and harden your plants off before you transplant them into the garden. So final one is transplanting them into the garden. So usually different plants have different times which you can plant them out in your garden. Brassicas can go into the garden before your average last frost date because they are a cold weather crop. Most of these instructions will be on your seed packet. If not, there's plenty of information online about when you can plant these out. But since we're talking quite a bit about tomato plants, I feel, need at least 60 degrees soil temperature. You can plant them outdoors in a cooler soil, and if your soil is reading at about 50 degrees, I like to tarp over my soil first, and that will bring in the natural sun rays and heat that under your tarp. Black tarp is better, not clear. It will heat up that soil in preparation for planting your tomatoes. There goes my furnace again. Sorry for the noise. So if you have questions about when you should start, it's better to wait. I always say gardening is not a race. It's not a competition, at least not for me. So it's better to wait than to plunk them down into a soil that is too cold, or outside temperatures are too cold and not warm enough. And when you finally do get those into the garden, I always like to put a nice layer of mulch around, and that helps in moisture retention, and it helps keep the soil from getting too cold. So those are a few tips that I have for your seedlings. Mostly it applies to your tomato seedlings and pepper seedlings, but it can spill over into most every seedling that you are going to start inside to go outside in your garden. So good luck with all of that. I know this is a little bit late. I should have put a video like this out before everybody started, but just keep this one in your save file. Most of this information applies to tomatoes. Tomatoes are by far the most grown crop of backyard gardeners. So don't get them out there too early. Anyway, but I am planting some of these, taking these out already. And my last frost date, average frost date, is the end of April, beginning of May. These are cabbages. It's a brassica. It's a cold weather plant. So starting early next week, I am going to start hardening these off. And along with all my other brassicas and spinach are going to start going out into my greenhouse and being hardened off a little bit at a time so they can get out into my garden in a couple weeks, firmly planted in their bed. If it would only stop raining. And they're calling for snow. Oh well. I can always wait a little bit longer. So until the next time that we can go digging in the dirt, happy gardening. Bye.